Benvenuti, bentornati, welcome back to the Italian Cultural Institute. My name is Renata Sperandio. I'm the director of the Italian Cultural Institute. On the very first weeks I was in Dublin, a year and a half ago, I happened to go to Sweeney. Sweeney is a place where they read Joyce. They do Ulysses in Italian every Sunday at 3 o'clock. And it was on that occasion that I met Max Bianchi. Eventually, after the reading, you go to a pub. And you talk about, it's a pub experience. It is a very interesting one. And on that occasion, Max started telling me about his interest. He's one of those researchers that travel the world, like old Irish monks. They are very successful, and this is what happened to Max. He has a wonderful curriculum. He is a scientist, and his interest in science led him to start a career also as an entrepreneur, which he's doing very successfully. So his interests are in neuroscience, and he will be talking about that. I know tonight's lecture is going to be extremely interesting. I do not know what is going on, but I know there will be music, I know there will be recordings, and there will be plenty of food for thought.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for being here. So I can see a lot of faces that I know, so thanks to the friends, thanks to the colleagues, and I think we can give it a start. If you're actually here because you're waiting for me to give you the potion to treat depression, this is not what is going to happen. What will happen today is that we will talk about depression, but we will talk about science of depression. The presentation will be divided in essentially three main parts. So in the first part, we will go through the history of depression, but for doing this, we will use a tool. And our tool will be the nickname, I like to call it big nickname, that is now given to depression, which is Black Dog, that you can see here, stepping on happiness, which is represented by this. So we'll use this to go through the history of depression, and actually it can give us a very good example of how people suffer about depression and what they feel about depression. The second part of the presentation is really going to be a sort of lecture, so I will get very academic in there. So I will make things simple, but we will learn a few things that we need for the third part of the presentation, which is actually where we will open the doors of my lab. And I will explain you a little bit about our research, our results, and where we actually want to go. Okay. But for understanding the third part, you need the means. So there will be this second part, which is actually a lecture. Now, depression. Depression has been with the human species essentially forever. And what you will probably find amazing is that already was described by Hippocrates, which is actually the father of modern medicine. And Hippocrates was, a Greek, this was before Christ, and he was saying something that personality is determined by the dominant humor. At that time, they were talking about humors. There was the blood, there was the yellow bile, there was the black bile, and there was the phlegm. So if you had a prominence of one of those humors, you had a specific or different personality. What is very important about Hippocrates, and which is amazing, is that he actually recognized depression as a disease. So he was the first saying that mental illness were both biological and psychological conditions, and classified them into categories, including mania, what he called melancholia, or depression, and phrenitis, which he called brain fever. Now, melancholia, I'm getting very Italian in here. We like to, go into the history of words. So melancholia actually is coming from the Greek. It means melas kol. So melas, black. So we see here for the first time the word black, the color black, describing depression and the state of depression. And then kole, which means bile, okay? What Hippocrates thought was that melancholia was caused by an excess of black bile in the spleen and was characterized by fears and despondencies if they last a long time. Be careful, because in the next slides we will also see the official nowadays definition of depression, and you will see that actually it needs to last a long time to be called depression, so Hippocrates was actually right. It was also using a treatment for depression, and this treatment was actually to take blood out of your body, okay? What they call bloodletting. And this is how he was treating melancholia. Apparently, it was working. Now, the black dog. I really enjoyed this first part because it's of the presentation to prepare it, because actually literature and music are two of my great passions. Going back into the time, I actually discovered that already in the Egyptians, the Greek and Roman mythology were talking about the black dog, and we have examples that we already know. They were harbinger of death and bad luck, okay? But most important, they were associated with the supernatural, and they were also opening the doors to the other world, so the world of the death, okay? The Greek, even before, so this is actually pre-Olympian, even before the Olympian gods, they were talking about Hecate, okay? She was a sort of witch, and she was associated with this black dog, Anubis, from the Egyptian mythology, and Cerberus, of course. Then the time passed, and we go to the British and Irish folklore. In the British and Irish folklore, actually they really talk of a physical black dog that can appear in villages. Even nowadays in Ireland, they believe this. There can be a black dog appearing, okay, and that can physically attack a person, and attack especially the back of the person, okay. What I'm talking in here is something that has been written and reported in 1577 in a small village in Suffolk in England. It's called the legend of Bungay. So Bungay is a small village, and there was a clergyman, a priest, that described this huge black dog, which probably was the devil. He was thinking he was the devil that attacked the church, destroyed the church, and he was also attacking the villagers. What he was actually reading, so there is not a mistake, you know, in spelling, was actually wrote in this way: drawing together and strung up. So it was becoming, this black dog was attacking the people, becoming the same thing as the people, okay, and putting them down somehow, okay. What I found a bit funny is that this black dog, which was such an evil creature, became actually the symbol of the city. So it's in their coat arm. And they actually have the football team. Their football team in Bungay is called the Black Dog. Or it's the Black Dog Football Club. But if you go more into our time, the first real example where the black dog was really associated with a state of depression was with the English philosopher and poet Samuel Johnson. And he was the first using the term black dog during his correspondence with actually 2 or 3 friends. And he was describing, and all of them were actually describing their melancholia as the black dog. And he used to say, the black dog I always to resist, and in time to drive. When I rise my breakfast is solitary. The black dog waits to share it. From breakfast to dinner, he continues barking. There was a person that was reading a lot Samuel Johnson and was influenced by him. It was Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill is really the one that made the black dog famous. He was responsible for the contemporary use of the term black dog to describe depression. And he used to say he was suffering about depression, but it was a very successful statement. So somehow he was actually able to overcome his depression. And he used to say to his collaborators and secretary, this morning I have the black dog on the shoulder. I cannot work. More recent, I really like to mention him because I like him very much. Roddy Doyle, he has been here actually very recently. And he wrote a short story. It's only 32 pages, but it's a fantastic story. I really recommend to actually go through it. It's called Brilliant. And it's the story of 2 children that actually heard the adults talking about the black dog depression that has climbed on their favorite uncle's back. And so what these children do, there are 2, but then there are all the kids of Dublin that go around the city to chase the black dog. And they actually meet the black dog. And at the end of the day, there is an amazing battle that is in Bull Island. This is where the final battle between the children and the black dog take place. And the weapon that they have is the word brilliant. So they say to the black dog, brilliant. And when they say brilliant, there is a light. And at the end, the black dog is actually defeated. And what the black dog did was that the black dog has stolen Dublin's funny bone. That's actually what he did. But the black dog, as you know, actually, the black dog influenced a lot of artists, musicians, painters. And there is one musician that's, it's a very sad story, but he was extremely talented. And he actually wrote about the black dog and this song about the black dog. His name is Nick Drake. He was an English singer, songwriter, and musician. He published 3 albums. During his lifetime, when he was alive, these 3 albums actually completely failed. No one was listening to them. And this was very hard for him. But they were fantastic albums. After his death, actually, Nick Drake, I think after 15 or 20 years, he was recognized as one of the most talented musicians of the modern time. Nick Drake had an issue. He had a black dog, as I told you. So the Nick Drake's depression, what happened to him? He suffered from what we call major depression, so he was clinically depressed. He was obliged to be hospitalized, and when he went to the hospital for 4 weeks, and this was in 1972. In July 1974, he was feeling a little bit better, and he wrote a song called The Black-Eyed Dog, where he was describing his depression, and he recorded the song. 4 months after, unfortunately, he committed what we believe was a suicide, using the same drugs that were prescribed to him to treat his depression. He was using amitriptyline. He took an overdose. He actually took 30 pills of amitriptyline, and unfortunately, he died. David Halpin.